Data Chief is a podcast for data and analytics leaders to share their personal stories and insights on technology, culture, and leadership. Welcome to the Data Chief.
Welcome to the Data Chief. I'm your host, Cindy Housen. Innovating with data and AI requires a unique skill set of an entrepreneurial spirit, business acumen, a not impossible mindset, and technical expertise. It's a tall order. Some would say a unicorn. Don Vu is the SVP and Chief Data and Analytics Officer at New York Life, a 180-year-old institution embracing cutting-edge data and AI. Don's also been the head of data at Major League Baseball Media, charged with getting individual teams to agree. Sounds impossible, right? And a founder of multiple startups. Don will share how his range of experience has shaped his role and the ability to drive change as the CDAO at New York Life, and why Gen AI is a generational disruption. Don, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Cindy. Excited to have this conversation.
The Data Chief is brought to you by ThoughtSpot, the AI-native intelligence platform. Anyone can leverage natural language search and generative AI to explore any data, ask any question, and uncover actionable insights faster. Learn why industry leaders like NVIDIA, Hilton, Capital One, and Huel rely on ThoughtSpot to drive their business on data. Experience the future of intelligence at ThoughtSpot.com.
So I would assume, Don, you're joining us from New York today, but where in the world are you?
You assume correctly. So I'm joining you from New York Life's historical office at 51 Madison. The company's over 180 years old. We've been in this building for quite some time. It actually sits on the footprint of the original Madison Square Garden. It's right next to Madison Square Park, as well as P.T. Barnum's Hippodrome. So we've got a bit of history. Really grateful to be joining you from our awesome offices.
Oh, wow. And yeah, when you mentioned P.T. Barnum, like as a kid, I remember going to the circus at Madison Square Garden. So iconic, so iconic.
Yep.
And Don, you've had an incredible journey in this space, but tell us a little bit about your role today.
Yeah, no, be happy to. I mean, first off, let's start with New York Life. I mean, you mentioned 180-year-old organization, incredible brand, over $1 trillion of in-force life insurance with an incredibly diverse portfolio that spans not just our core insurance business, but what we call our strategic businesses. The largest direct-to-consumer insurance business in the U.S. We have the largest health and life insurance company in Mexico, group benefits business, and then we manage $800 billion of assets under management through our financial boutiques. And I'm really, really grateful to be the Chief Data Analytics Officer, accountable for our AI and data strategy across the entire enterprise, spanning all of that. It's a lot, but it's just such an incredible opportunity. New York Life is such a venerable institution with incredible data and an incredible business model, and just grateful to be here helping to guide our journey.
Yeah, and it's quite a portfolio. So anyone who thinks it's just life insurance has the wrong impression, right? Yeah. And Don, it's interesting though, your start in this industry, you've done everything, baseball, retail startups. Take us a little bit back in time. How did this varied career shape your perspective today?
Yeah, no, I'm super grateful for my 25 plus year journey in tech data and AI. And it's one of these things where, in retrospect, it makes a lot of sense. But at the time, it probably was, evolved a bit more organically than that. I can't say I planned it out this way. But it really started when I moved to New York in 99 to work for a startup that built startups. It was a company called Scient. We built, early social media companies, some of the first like financialbank.com presences, hotwire.com. And one of the projects that we were on was to actually build the first MLB.com. And so it was 1998-ish, I believe, that then Commissioner Bud Selig convinced the 30 baseball clubs to consolidate their digital rights into one entity that owned those digital rights and operated platforms for the entire league, which would then level the playing field for small market and large market teams. they needed a company to build it, and so they hired Scient, where I was a data engineer. Um, it was a great run. I got to play with baseball stats. I was responsible for the stats database for baseball geeks. It was the Elias database. And then when the bubble burst, as I think most folks are aware, hopped around a little bit, but ultimately ended up landing at MLB Advanced Media as one of the founding members of their customer analytics team. Had an amazing 13-year run there. Was also there when they spun off their tech services division, a company called BAMTech that was ultimately sold to Disney for $3.5 billion. So that was an amazing run. Ended up working at WeWork, which is a pretty infamous startup for those folks that are aware. And after that, special adventure, I looked for a little bit more safety and ended up in the insurance industry. Led me to Northwestern Mutual first, and then now like this great place that I am right now here at New York Life. And it was amazing. It was a really great run that's given me an incredible perspective across multiple trillion-dollar industries and different types of organizations with different cultural profiles. And so I try to take everything I learn and apply it to everything we're doing here today.
Yeah, so that is quite a journey, Don. And I think back to 1998 when some people were even saying, oh, the internet is not real. Dial up is too slow. I don't know. We had Katie Couric, I think it was, saying on national networks, can somebody explain the internet to me? Um, and now you're a CDAO, and one CDAO said to me, the title really should be chief collaborator. If you think about what you had to do, getting individual business owners to agree an operating principle, how do you think that that experience has shaped your role today?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it. I think it's really all about relationships. It's about understanding, shared goals with folks, how you can help individuals succeed, how you can be a contributing team member, whether you work for the same company or not. And absolutely, that's something I learned throughout my entire career, whether it was working at the league and collaborating with baseball clubs, whether it was, you know, being here at New York Life and collaborating with our agents that sell our products or with our business partners. I think it's always about collaboration, working as a team, understanding, our shared aspirations. And at our essence, it's a relationship business.
Yeah. And you mentioned the Elia database. Of course, many have seen the movie Moneyball, even if they're not a baseball fan. Any kind of surprising statistic or story you want to share with us?
From the baseball days,
Yeah.
I would say it's funny because it's so data and data and analytics and my primary purview there was mostly around Moneyball for business. So how do we sell more baseball tickets? How do we get people to be more engaged with our apps? And so that was my purview. But my peers had the on the field peers that I had an amazing job. I think one of the neat things about baseball is it's even more rich with data than a lot of people understand. So every single stadium is instrumented with high-speed camera and radar, such that you can track the XYZ coordinates of every single object on the field, including the ball. All that data, has been shared with baseball clubs, so all of their analysts have the same massive trove of data from which to analyze and understand how player performance is occurring on the field and to optimize strategies. And really, a lot of differentiation is how analysts, data scientists, AI staff are utilizing that data, but that massive, data asset is really shared across the entire league, which is pretty remarkable. I think it really speaks to the essence of how the league tries to level the playing field across, all 30 plus baseball clubs. So pretty neat story there.
Yeah, I think anyone who goes to their next game is going to think about that stadium and data just a little bit differently. Don, as you tell this story, I'm thinking about the internet era, and now here we are at the Gen AI era. And you have spoken about the last mile problem. Explain what that is.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that I've learned over the years, having been at so many different organizations, many different industries, there's a few different takeaways that I've had for sure. The first is that the problems in data and AI aren't exactly the same across companies, but they tend to rhyme. There are a lot of similarities. You'd be surprised between baseball, real estate, and insurance. A lot of similar themes and challenges, whether it's one to have a holistic understanding of your customer, whether it's trying to be proactive in your customer experience. That's a common theme time and time again. So again, common challenges across the board. A second takeaway that I have is around really about having impact. Like wherever I've been, I've always tried to have business impact with the initiatives that my teams and I have been driving forward. And so, you know, part and parcel of that is this last mile problem that you mentioned. So it's not just about building a predictive model. It's not about even having like the best, best tuned LLM. More often than not, it's about how that actually gets operationalized. What's the application layer? How does that actually influence and change a business process that has existed before that now has this step function improvement with this new capability? So this notion of the last mile problem, understanding, those folks that are most involved with the areas that you're trying to disrupt, how, their lives are going to change if something gets implemented. And then really understanding how do you actually like measure impact and isolate the impact of what you're actually trying to deploy and then constantly optimize it. It's that last mile problem. It's that operationalization, the change management, the adoption, the acceptance of a solution that tends to be where, most of the challenges are.
Yeah, and I would almost say perhaps it's also harder because a lot of, let's say, CDOs, and I do think it's always telling when the analytics, is in the job title. A lot of CDOs grew up in tech or IT that is more a cost center. You've had this background also as a business leader, a founder. So I think there's a statistic like a third of CDOs, only a third of CDOs can actually quantify or talk about the value of their team's efforts. What are you seeing as you network, or how do we fix this?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great call. I mean, it's funny, my background is actually, I went to undergrad business school, but I was fortunate to have been like programmed computers since I was 12, back when it was like logo with turtles and drawing lines on the floor. But I've been fortunate to have that like duality of both, programming throughout my entire, from childhood on up, but then really having a business anchoring. But yeah, no, I think those CDOs and CDAOs, and CDAIOs, there's acronyms out, but I'd say like those peers of mine that I look up to, there's so many of them. Um, all of them are really connected to business value and understanding how they move the needle. They're relentless about measuring things, about the storytelling that's required to really convey the impact of they and their team's efforts. And oftentimes it's not about just their team's efforts, it's about the partnership with the business. I think what sometimes gets lost in the quantification is the win often sits mostly in the lap of the business partner who's really driving and leading a certain domain, whether it's, in finance or operations or service or whatever it might be. And really making it like a team win, I think is really, really key because, you know, sharing or conveying a certain value that you've quantified that isn't necessarily doesn't have the buy-in of your business partner or let's say finance when appropriate, is more of an uphill battle. So I think that's a really critical part of it too.
For sure. And that partnership often comes from leadership. So you have a CEO in Greg DeSantos who appreciates the value of data and AI. Maybe take us back a little bit in time as you were joining. And where were we on the Gen AI curve here? How important was the data vision at that point in time?
Yeah, so I joined the company in the fall of 2023. So that's roughly less than a year, but almost a year from the launch of ChatGPT. And during the interview process, one thing that was very clear to me in talking to Craig was, first off, he was like incredible business visionary. He was reorienting the organization to move away from simply selling life insurance and individual financial products and more about holistic advice and guidance. How do all of our solutions and services comprehensively help clients reach their financial goals, anchored in, a financial plan, and also like really our anchoring in customer and agent and advisor experience being industry leading there. And I think what Craig understood is that data is the underpinning foundation upon which that runs seamlessly and consistently. AI is the way by which becomes proactive and intelligent across the entire set of experiences. And so when we had our conversations, when I was going through the interview process, it was very clear that, AI and data wasn't just this thing on the side that was meant to in some ways just be a PR stunt. It was deeply embedded in our business strategy. And that's only become more and more pervasive since I got here. And so very, very grateful to be where I am, that all of these things are so interconnected and synergistic.
Yeah, no, that's great. And you described earlier the different business lines that are at New York Life. If somebody from, let's say, a property and casual insurance company is listening, how would you say it's similar or different?
Yeah, I would say like there's differences in each of them. I would say PNC, from what I've observed, and I've never explicitly worked with PNC, but certainly have a ton of colleagues there. Um, PNC, the underwriting is more frequent. Typically for, car insurance or, for your home or rental insurance, the underwriting is more frequent. So it happens perhaps annually is when these things get renewed. Whereas life insurance, happens more on the front end. And then we have a long lasting relationship with our policyholders. So that's one set of differences. I would say both of them deal with a lot of, messy data. We have to deal with, medical data and a lot of unstructured data that comes with it and with the way health records are maintained. On the PNC side, they have to wrangle a lot of data as well. Depending on the context, whether it's like home insurance or whatever that might be, it could be geolocation data and all sorts of things like that. But I think tons of similarity with some, maybe some slight nuance differences.
Yeah, and if I think back to how maybe life insurance was 40 years ago, you write the policy and you don't hear from them until there's a life event. How has data and AI changed the interaction model?
Yeah, no, I think, and this really speaks to the shift in our business strategy. I think we want to have more intention and a deeper and more frequent relationship with our clients. This notion of understanding their needs through a financial plan and through the various like the needs assessment that we run through with them, understanding how risk products and growth products work side by side in conjunction to provide better outcomes along the way. All that leads to a less episodic sort of relationship with our clients and a more structured one where we're meeting with them on a regular basis to understand how we're helping them achieve their goals at a minimum annually. But again, like thinking about that financial plan as this anchoring point, thinking of the financial plan as the way that we capture and understand their hopes and dreams and how we can best help them achieve those. The data really is, an underpinning that helps us have that deep relationship.
Let's focus on maybe a more specific example, the here and now. Do you want to talk about the GuideMe application as a digital strategy here?
Yeah. So one of the tools that New York Life developed actually was during COVID to facilitate agents selling and doing some financial planning is this tool called GuideMe. And GuideMe is really, in my opinion, really compelling and interesting. It's a tool that our agents um, leverage while we're meeting with clients. It's a shared screen experience. So imagine an advisor sitting with a client and they're both looking at the same screen. And what GuideMe facilitates doing is, having a guided way by which a client's needs are understood, how that's mapped to financial goals that they might have, and then how our financial product then might best suit, the path that they want to and the goals they want to achieve. And the interesting and amazing thing about GuideMe is like it has an incredible potential to have AI pervasively through it, whether it's like, with, of course, with consent, like listening and understanding what these needs are, whether it's, aggregating various data sources, unstructured and structured, to kind of like stitch together a plan, and whether it's actually like projecting what that plan would be and the multiple ways to get there and maybe the optimal way, given, the situation of the client. So like the opportunities are really robust there. I mean, you can almost even imagine how that might morph into, an AI teammate that really just helps out our agents, not just explicitly in those in client meetings, but even beyond that. So all of this stuff is just, strategic and conceptual in nature. They're things we've discussed, but not necessarily I put like deep bets on any aspects, or at least not ones that I can talk about. Um, but yeah, no, we're really optimistic about how, in general, the agent and client experience is going to be completely supercharged by AI.
What's your take then on how much of this will still be human advisors versus pure AI advisors?
We think human-led, protection-first, holistic advice and guidance is really the key here. And we have amazing advisors. We have amazing agents throughout the country. And what we're really focused on is really enhancing them and trying to make their lives easier by having AI at their side. So that's our primary focus. We think it's a competitive differentiator, and we're really excited about it.
Yeah, so humans powered by the AI.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. So you join New York Life, let's say 1 year in to the Gen AI storm, and there's lots of ideas. Is this real? Is this not real? We think it's real by then. Take us through how you inspired your business stakeholders to reimagine businesses and ways of working and how you prioritized.
Yeah, no, it's a great call. I think for many folks, it's been a pretty wild journey since that fateful, November 2022 when ChatGPT was launched. And when I arrived, there was already like a ton of energy and momentum here. I think um, there we had put out a call and tried to assess and understand what the art of possibility might be. We really tried to democratize that ideation, and there were hundreds of potential use cases that were surfaced. We were pretty intentional about trying to pick those use cases that we felt had the greatest opportunity for impact throughout our business. So we really wanted to be intentional about honing in on a few that we thought were high value, high impact, and key domain. And so we oriented on a few. I'll note two in the areas of like claim and service. And we really wanted to make sure we went through the entire sort of process of like creating a POC, get it to production, understand impact, do the change management. And we did that. And it was like incredibly instructive and really started to like create this engine of new ways of working and thinking about the possibility. I think, we've also had two other aspects of what I would call our AI portfolio. So in addition to these focused use cases, we've really leaned into democratization. So putting AI tools in the hands of every single employee here at New York Life, and, OpenAI and ChatGPT Enterprise is one way by which we've done that. Microsoft Copilot is another. And as those tools continue to create, advance and provide agentic capabilities, we're even more optimistic about how that's going to help our employees. So 12,000 of them go from 12,000 employees to 12,000 innovators. And then finally, the third sleeve is the one that you mentioned, this notion of like domain reinvention. And the amazing part about that is our business leaders are, chomping at the bit to use this as an opportunity to really re-anchor their aspirations. I think the thing about AI is it's not an easy button, but what it does do is it really opens the realm of possibility. It helps us like aspire to do more than we ever thought we could before. And then, of course, like the actual solutioning involves like technology, data, change management, business process reengineering. There's a lot of tools that go into a true reinvention of a domain. But I'm really, really grateful that like again, the energy here is palpable. It's everywhere. It's in every town hall. It's in every single executive officer meeting. We have a board meeting coming up where it's, the topic du jour as well. So um, it's been an incredible ride, and we're just getting started.
Yeah, and I know we have to thank you for taking time out from that board prep to record this podcast. But that's a lot of use cases, a lot of re-engineering. Were there any surprises on the data readiness as you went through this?
For sure, for sure. And it's funny. On one hand, it was a surprise. On the other hand, it was kind of like the same issues that I've encountered throughout my 25+ year career. There is this, phrase that data practitioners often, cite. It's like this notion of garbage in, garbage out. And data quality matters. The latency of your data, is significantly important. Notion of like data governance and data stewardship. So when a business owner being accountable for the quality of data is really important. So all these things that data practitioners have adhered to in kind of the structured data world, like when data warehouses and reporting and analytics and in tables, they also have some applicability to maybe the unstructured data world. So when we were working through certain domains and going through, vast, PDFs and corpuses of, instruction manuals and documentation, those, initiatives that were most successful had owners that had been accountable for just how accurate, how up to date those unstructured data assets were. In those areas where we had a bit more challenges, we didn't have as robust ownership there. We didn't have as much kind of attention to those areas. And so that was kind of a learning along the way.
Yeah, that's such a great point, Don. And I think about people who have not had that governance on the semi-structured data. It's like Sure, go ahead and upload all those PDF files, and you've got an employee manual in there or a policy in there that is out of date, not current. And so I think this is a lot of what we've learned from the structured world. We need to go back and do some cleanup on the semi-structured or dark data world.
Absolutely.
So, Don, let's shift a little bit now to the industry view. And recognizing that you and I are both learning and watching this, I would say we started out with, um, let's just say, generative AI, large language models, battle of the large language models, then AI agents last year. And now it's really about agent orchestration. And it feels like every week, every month, there is a new announcement about a new protocol. Tell us, what are you tracking the most?
Yeah, and this is a great and fun space for me. I mean, maybe that just shows that I'm a nerd, but I remember the early days of the internet where it was a very similar sort of nascent sort of feeling, and it was before we had protocols that stitch things together. It was before we had things like web analytics. It was before we had just a lot of kind of what we take for granted as like structural scaffolding. And we're kind of in that phase right now with AI, in my opinion. And so things like MCP, Model Context Protocol, that was open sourced by Anthropic and now adopted by every major player, including OpenAI. Um, I think that's something that we're watching. It's a method by which agents can essentially access data sources, agent to agent protocol. So I guess that's another one that I think Google has put out that facilitates agents talking to each other. I think for sure, like those sorts of standards that facilitate stitching together this workflow amongst all these different agents are going to be very, very critical. And in some ways, I anchor more to those protocols in that sort of connective tissue than the actual agentic solutions themselves, because agentic solutions are coming up everywhere. They're of course coming up in more vertically oriented areas like a Salesforce. They have a whole set, their Agentforce ecosystem. Microsoft has their agentic ecosystem. OpenAI has their set of agents. So I think the interoperability and the ability for each of these ecosystems to communicate with each other in a connected and seamless way is where I feel like the unlock is going to be. So tracking it is nascent. Not an expert. I don't know how many people are, but
Nobody. It's all new. Or the MCP founders would know MCP. The A2A founders would know A2A. I think everyone's learning. Everyone is at day one. And to your point, the scaffolding, gosh, I even predate you. It was token ring or Ethernet. We had one business unit that wanted token ring and another that wanted Ethernet. And some people would probably say, what the heck is token ring? So I think we're agreeing these standards. Let's say another thing that could happen. I don't want to lead the witness here. Which approach do you want? But we could have just one dominant player set all the standards. If you look at the iPhone app market and then the Droid app store, we might go down that path rather than everyone playing fairly and just saying, here are the standards we'll agree with. What do you think?
absolutely. Yeah, I think it's a possibility. I think it's in this instance probably unlikely simply because of what we just described. I just think there's so many agentic solutions out there that are being pushed by so many large players that the ability to go horizontally is going to be so incredibly critical. And we're already seeing, as an example, right? So Anthropic and OpenAI are competitors, and in theory, so are Google and others and AWS. But all of them have, put their weight behind MCP. I mean, I know that's just one protocol that speaks to one specific part of the value chain, but that's where my intuition is. But of course, who knows? So.
Yeah, and so I do want to, for our listeners, mention also Nanda is one coming out of a number of universities. And it's important to note that at least for now, Google has said A2A and MCP are not competitive. They're actually very complementary. But watch this space. We'll see. So then, Don, if you could take this agentic orchestration and you could reimagine something cross organization, um, what would be a workflow that you might reimagine?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. And I think there's opportunities that are specific to a single domain, whether it's like customer service or tech support or finance. And I think maybe the greatest opportunity are those workflows that span multiple functional areas. So think about like bringing on like a new software partner, right? And going through the procurement process and the various like security reviews and all of these sort of like multi-step, like multi-departmental workflows that sometimes have a workflow tool for sure. But to the extent that we can actually have like agents that are actually facilitating this work, then I feel like that could be an incredible unlock because oftentimes, each department's workflow is very captured in a tool. It's very tool based, right? It's like when you need to do something related to HR, you have to go into like Workday or Success Factors, or when you need to do a workflow related to, a service ticket in tech support, maybe you have to go to ServiceNow. And I think that the ability to take workflows out of these individual tools, particularly those that span multiple departments, and have these, multi-department agentic workflows could be an amazing opportunity.
For sure. Do you think we could get even further and make it an ecosystem external to one organization? If you think about the way a traditional life insurance policy is written, you send a nurse to my house, we do all the health checks. What about if it's an AI agent coming from my doctor's office, sharing data? I have to give permission, of course, but sharing data with you to underwrite the policy. Am I dreaming too big here, or do you think we'll get to this point?
I mean, we're already doing some of it so one of our big initiatives with underwriting is um, we're kind of innovating in this space where we're using electronic health records and not having to do fluids for a large portion of our business. So like some of that's happening in a more like what we're calling straight through processed way and through automation essentially and connectivity to those ecosystems. I do foresee this notion and this future where agents are working on consumers' behalf for sure and engaging with the agents from brands. So whether it's setting appointments to talk to our advisors, whether it's engaging directly with our customer service and actually having agents for our policyholders engaging with agents for our customer service reps. That feels like something that is going to happen. One of the things that I found very compelling was a few weeks ago when, MasterCard, PayPal, and I can't remember who the third payments provider, they all had come out with these different agent related protocols for making purchases. And it was basically foreseeing a world where agents aren't just helping a consumer in the consideration phase of making a purchase, but actually making the purchase itself and being authorized for buying up something up to a certain amount and having chargebacks as part of that framework and, refunds, a robust refund framework to just give some safety rails. But it's coming, right? I think it's hard for us to see because we're on this exponential curve.
Yeah.
But if you fast forward, I mean, ChatGPT is not even 3 years old yet, right?
Yeah.
It comes quite a long way. So imagine 3, 5, 7, 10 years from now.
For sure. I think some people outside our industry would say this is like science fiction, but it's nearer than we think. You're also super excited about the impact on software engineering. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I actually, one of the things that I reflected on, and it's been clear from the beginning that, software development is an area that's always had a lot of traction with Gen AI. It started with things like GitHub Copilot and autocomplete of code. It then shifted in this notion of like a chat-based coding. Now we have like vibe coding. But I think with agentic workflows in particular, this is such an incredible domain where we will see, in my opinion, a pretty steep progress, and partially because essentially like the deterministic way by which you can evaluate the output of the LLM. So I think one of the challenging things to date with Gen AI is this notion of hallucinations or just the reality that some subset of the responses are not going to be factually accurate. I think the beautiful thing about software engineering and development is you actually have a deterministic way to know whether or not this probabilistic code that was generated has an error or doesn't. And so having that, virtuous cycle and that feedback loop to optimize on continuously, coupled with the advancements in, agentic sort of capabilities and the ability to scale horizontally, software engineering and having QA baked in and things of that nature, it's hard not to see that this is an area that's going to be a significant, where we're going to see significant progress. And then if you zoom out, a lot of these discussions about like what the progress is going to be of AI in general, there's this AI 2027 sort of perspective that a former OpenAI researcher had put out of how we actually get to, AGI or artificial superintelligence, however you want to describe it. Having this like superhuman software engineer is almost this inflection point where you could, really start to improve your progress because you have this, incredible resource that advances things even more significantly. So it's definitely an area we're watching. It's pretty fascinating stuff.
Let's shift to a lightning round, Don. So fun questions, short answers. What do you enjoy doing outside of work when you're not immersed in the world of data and AI?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I'm like a dad, and a family man. So I've got an awesome wife and 2 kids. Kat and Evie are 10 and 12. We love to hang out. We love to travel. We just went to Morocco, hoping to go to Japan later this year. And then for me personally, I love like golf and surfing are my 2 vices. So both complement me getting up really early in the morning and doing stuff and getting back to hang with the family with plenty of time left in the day.
Oh, great. So I have to ask, favorite local surf spot?
I mean, there's only really one in New York City, the Rockaway Beach. And so head out there. It's fun. It's a good time. Not easy. I'm not a very good surfer, but it's awesome. It's just nice to be out on the water, and it's a great way to clear your head.
I'll have to send you my Jersey Shore spots. How about a book or a podcast that has significantly influenced your thinking?
Lots of books. Probably the one I talk about the most is John Kotter's Leading Change. And you kind of alluded to it. I think for sure, this job is so much about, understanding our domain in tech and data and AI, but really it's about people. It's about bringing people together to do amazing things. And John Kotter's Leading Change has been really helpful for me on that journey.
Excellent. And we'll link to that in the show notes. How about a hidden gem, restaurant, place in New York that you love?
I'll just go for a local one. I live in South Williamsburg, Brooklyn. And so Diner is kind of an institution that's about a block away from where I live. It was right next to Marlowe, which unfortunately closed, but Diner's still there. They have a great burger. Every once in a while I'll take a lunch on a sunny day with my wife and eat there, and we'll split a salad and a burger. Big fan of Diner.
Wonderful. You can choose the last question depending on your mood in the moment. Either something that has totally made you laugh out loud recently, or what are you most grateful for, maybe beyond the obvious?
Gosh, I'll go with I wish I had to laugh out loud one because I bet it'd be fun to have a more lighthearted way to finish it. I mean, the thing that I'm probably most grateful for, and obviously health, family, and all those things, and I am grateful for being in this moment in time in my career. But I'm actually just grateful for every chance I have to give back and the chances that I do. We have a really like philanthropic soul here at the company, and that means a lot of volunteer work, a lot of mentoring. Every time I have a chance to give back to my community, I think that's, incredibly rewarding. And so that's something I hope to do even more of in the future when things calm down a little bit. But whenever I have the chance to do that and like volunteer or just help out my community, then it makes me feel good.
Oh, wonderful. Don, thank you so much for being on the Data Chief.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining the Data Chief as we explore data and AI leadership. To continue your journey, subscribe to our podcast on your preferred listening platform and connect with me on LinkedIn or X at BI Scorecard. If you are loving this podcast, please rate or review it so others can also discover the podcast.
The Data Chief is brought to you by ThoughtSpot, the AI-native intelligence platform built for everyone to create personalized insights, drive data decisions, and take action. Learn how companies like Lyft, Brambles, and Navan are leading the way at ThoughtSpot.com.